Hi, this is Braden Holtby.
Hey, this is Tanner the Bulldozer Bozer.
Hi, this is Brian Burke from Toronto, Ontario.
This is Daryl Sutter.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carly Agro from Sportsnet Central.
This is Jay Onright.
This is Quick Dick coming to you from Tofnell, Saskatchewan.
Hey, everybody. My name is Theo Fleury.
This is Kelly Rudy.
This is Corey Cross.
This is Wade Redden.
This is Jordan Tutu.
My name is Jim Pattison.
Hey, it's Ron McLean, Hockey Night in Canada and Rogers Hometown Hockey, and welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast.
Let's get on to this T-Bar 1 Tale of the Tape. Originally from Lloydminster, he graduated from NAIT's Radio and Television Arts program. After spending nearly 8 years at television stations in Lloydminster, Saskatoon, and Toronto, he moved back to Edmonton and joined CTV. He's a graduate of meteorology program at Mississippi State University and a member of the Canadian Meteorological and Oceanographic Society. I'm talking about Mr. Josh Classen. So buckle up, here we go.
This is Josh Classen, or as you'll learn later in the show, juggling omnipotent content. And you're listening to the Sean Newman Podcast.
Welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast. Today I'm joined by Mr. Josh Classen, or am I supposed to call you the juggling omnipotent content, or Mr. Suit and Tie? I don't know. You got so many names. I don't know what to start off with.
The Atmospheric Avenger. Yeah. You know, listen, when I was a kid, one of my nicknames was Jock. And so when I started rapping, I switched it up because everybody back in the 90s, their rap name was an acronym. And so Jock, J-O-C, stood for Juggling Omnipotent Content.
Well, I gotta be very clear here. I feel like I live under a box or a rock or something, because as soon as I started doing any sort of research on you, it came very clear. I thought there was another Josh Classen, and I thought for sure you were pulling my leg about the rapping thing. And then I started listening, and I'm like, that's pretty good. That can't be him, though, right? And then I started digging more and more, and the more I dug on you, everything comes back rapping. And I'm like, I obviously live under a stone not to know that.
No, you don't live under a stone. It's just that that's my first love. And because I love that so much, I intentionally keep that separate from my other job. Because I do the same thing everybody else does. And as soon as I hear rapping weatherman, I roll my eyes and I change the channel, and I don't want to hear it. So yeah, people are always like, hey, you should rap on the weather. And no, that will never happen.
And yet the song that was played at the end of the other podcast you did back in 2012, and Spacing, The Unknown Studio, the song you gave them, you rap about clouds and the weather.
Yeah, that's the only one. So before I was a successful weatherman, I was trying to break into the industry. And so the song was Atmospheric Avenger. Atmospheric Avenger, defender of warm weather, weak western winds, and a high pressure center. Lover of Mother Nature, precipitation preventer. Got a meteorological, neurological connector.
You know, so
I got a radar map on the back of my brain. So if I'm acting strange, it's because they attach satellite maps to the insides of my eye flaps with 30-second time lapse, just so I could keep track of the rain. But that was, I was a weather guy in Lloydminster at that point. No, maybe Saskatoon.
So my recollection of you, because I'm like, I don't know, you're what? I don't want to date you, but you're in your 40s now.
44.
44.
Yeah, 44.
And you look like you're 22. Is that something to do with weathermen? They gotta like always look the same age as they get older? Because yes. I got another.
You remember Bill Matheson? Bill Matheson was like 80 and he still looked like he was 40.
It's crazy. Bill Matheson fought in World War II, I'm pretty sure.
No, really?
Yeah, I'm like, you know what we're going to do right now while we got everybody waiting while I drop that freaking bomb. I'm going to pull it up.
Listen, he was the guy, right? Because I grew up in Lloydminster, and so
born in 1926. Born in 1926, he joined the Army at age 17 and fought in World War II as a paratrooper. Wow. Hey, did I just blow your mind this morning?
Holy. Bill and his Red Sox.
Anyways, Yeah, I've had Earl Stevenson, who was on Canadian Idol once upon a time from Lloyd. He's come
Yeah.
on and sang a song. I've never had anyone just start rapping on the middle of the show. That's hey, I grew up
You
in
mean Onright didn't just break into freestyle?
No, he did not. And I tell you what, the next time he's on, I'm certainly going to ask him to.
Yeah, you should. You should. Onright. So I worked with him at Global in Saskatoon, and he would write bits because we would have to do. He would throw to weather, and so at the end of his sports segment, but we would be standing literally back to back, and so we would have to pre-tape my little response to him, and so he would write it because he was funny and I wasn't, and so he would write, here's the setup, and then here's your punchline, and so I would pre-tape at like 4 p.m. the punchline, and 6 times out of 10 he would change the setup so the punchline didn't make any sense, and then he would just giggle. Yeah. Love Onright.
That's awesome. Oh God, the early stories of you guys, like when you're back before your stardom, so to speak, those stories are entertaining as all hell. Like, do young guys still get away with some of that stuff right now?
Nope. There was no social media back then, right? So you could get away with a lot more than you do now. And you know what? We hear stories from the real old timers, and they're even more off the rails. TV and radio used to be crazy back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
What's one of the
But
best
so did
stories?
everything, right? So did sports, right? Like you hear stories about Oilers that would be at, characters in downtown Edmonton in the basement. You can't get away with those things anymore, right? You hear stories about Glenn Anderson and those guys back in the day, and I'm sure only half of them are true. But even if only half of them are true, that's crazy. So yeah, the old timers had a lot more fun than we did, but we have way more fun than these kids do now.
Pretty crazy. And they'll, as time goes on, I assume technology ain't going the other way. It's not like you're all of a sudden just going to get rid of technology. So what you're saying is, as it goes along, it's going to get worse and worse for every generation that comes along. For the amount of
I don't know if it gets
fun.
Worse.
Well, it does though, in a sense, right? The freedom to live a little outside the lines is slowly being pulled back.
I got a 16-year-old son, and I mean, I follow him on Twitter just because I have to keep track of what he's saying. I'm like, listen, you got to take that down. Your potential future employers are going to see that. So yeah, everything you do is in a bit of a fishbowl.
I tell you what, you probably talk about this a lot. I know I seem to talk about it a lot, but I'm really happy in my developmental years, probably from, I don't know, whatever it is, 14 to 25 or whatever that space is, shorten it or lengthen it for wherever you're at in life. But I'm really glad social media wasn't what it is now, because I did a lot of stupid shit that time. And I'm really happy that it wasn't captured, right? Like now you can't escape your stupid.
No. And I don't even have pictures of things we did. Whereas now, I mean, forget about posting it on social media. Everybody has at least a phone that takes a picture of every single incident that it's crazy.
You have 3 children, 16, 14, 13, which is very close to what we are. We're at, but we're younger. That's 2 years and then 1 year apart, and we're 4, 3, and 1. So, does it get? I'm looking at you like a look into the future. Is it better in the teenage years?
It's different in the teenage years. We were, I think, every sort of stage you have your ups and your downs. We were watching. So our kids used to make YouTube videos, like fighting videos, or they would record themselves playing Minecraft. And we actually went down a bit of a rabbit hole last night watching them and laughing at, their young little voices. But they were so cute back then. Although I seem to recall back then that they annoyed me just as much as they do now as teenagers. So now it's like, you gotta slow down while you're driving, because our 16-year-old just got his license. I'm like, it snowed, like there's ice outside. Stop. I need new tires on my car. said, what do you mean you need new tires on your car? So I went and drove it. He's like, yeah, no, it's fine stopping. It's just I can't get off the line very quickly. I'm like, well, you can't gun it. You got to go slow. So yeah, every age has its joy. The older they get, the more you can see light at the end of the tunnel where they're going to move out, and my wife and I can have our lives back again.
What are you going to do when they move out? Well, like, what is your big plan?
I'm going to sell everything, and I'm going to live in a 1-bedroom condo, so they can come visit, but they can't stay.
You realize you're going to get married.
There. You can sleep on that for a little bit.
You realize you're going to get married, have kids, and then you're going to need a bigger space all over again because you're going to love the next role, which is grandparent, where you get to jam, chocolate and everything else in their mouth at like 7 a.m. and send them home.
Listen, I'm only 44, Sean. Let's not get to Grandpa Josh just yet.
I know.
No, I don't know what I'm going to do when my kids.
It's coming for you.
When my kids leave, I don't think they're leaving anytime soon. Our oldest wants to be a doctor, and so he'll be living at home, going to university for a long time. I think our only hope is that our youngest might end up in jail, so we might be down to 2 kids at some point. I'm only half kidding.
I'm only half kidding. Well, enough kid talk. I love talking kids because
Sure.
we got the 3, 4 and under. I mean the fourth is turns
Are they
5
all boys or boys and girls?
Boy, girl, boy. It adds a very interesting complexion to it, and
Yes. So you have not only will you have to deal with middle child issues, but you'll have to deal with middle child only girl issues.
that is correct.
Oh, man, you don't know what you have in store.
She already has me twisted around her finger. Like she is
Oh,
smart.
yeah.
She is the older brother. So Shay, the oldest, he is like stereotypical boy, run through everything. Like, I mean, going to be a fun kid to watch in sports and that type of thing. But his younger sibling at 3, she has figured out how to be like, she can twist things. She's smart. She's really smart. And she's 3. And I go, you're 3 and you're already this smart. Like, that's scary. Like, you're a scary human being right now.
At 3, yeah.
At 3.
You got to find a way to channel that into something positive.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're gonna figure something out. Now, what about? Let's talk about this weather career. I'm curious because I go. It's a job where you probably don't like hearing this, but I mean, like, even if you're wrong, you're right? Like, I mean, it's an interesting career, and weather is always changing, so you don't have usually the same day. Living in Edmonton, you get to deal with the extremes of, extreme heat to where we're sitting at right now and going worse. So your days aren't, I assume, the same. So we already alluded to the rapper thing, and I want to go down that rabbit hole too. But like, where and when do you decide, like, man, I want to be a weatherman? Because I think back to a kid, and I go, I don't remember growing up. I always remember thinking, man, maybe being the sports guy would be fun. Like, that might have been fun, but to be the weather guy, I just don't remember. Actually, you're the one weather guy from Lloyd I can remember, which is kind of odd. Like, I can't remember anybody else. And I apologize to anyone else who did weather in Lloyd. But when did this start?
So I didn't grow up wanting to be a weatherman either, right? Like, weatherman wasn't a career that you even could do. So I was going to be a sportscaster. If I didn't make it to the NHL, I was going to be a sportscaster or a teacher.
What position did you play?
What position do you think I played?
I want to say you're a goalie.
There's your hint right there. Yeah. Of course I was a goalie, because back in the day, that's where you put the short kid, right? You put the little, put Classen in net. He's little. We'll just shoot pucks.
How short are you?
I'm like 5'8", which means 5'7".
So,
So
I'm 5'7", which means I'm closer to 5'6.5", meaning I didn't play goalie. I think there's more to it than just being short.
no. So but I'm older than you, so that you might have caught the wave of like big goalies coming in. All of a sudden, Ron Hextall got popular, and everybody went, "Oh, we need a big goalie
put
in
the
there."
giant
Yeah,
in net. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. That makes sense. He blocks more net. So yes, I was going to play in the NHL, but then I didn't make it. So I went to NAIT, and I was going to be a sportscaster. Got a internship at CKSA in Lloydminster because you don't make any money, and I went home to live with my parents. And then I was lucky enough to get hired on as a news reporter, and hated being a news reporter. And so
When you
my
say
boss said,
when you say news reporter, do you mean like
Yeah.
going out and like one of the main two people at the front of the hour talking, or do you mean
no,
a guy out on the streets going and like getting the news?
yeah. So I don't remember many stories, but I do remember covering a lady who was angry because there was garbage on her front lawn because she lived across the street from the exhibition, and the Lloyd exhibition had just come through town. And I remember thinking, this happens every year. Like the X was right across. What do you think is going to be on your front lawn? Why am I doing this? I thought it was a smart guy, and now here I am interviewing some lady who's angry about garbage on her front lawn. So I didn't really enjoy being a news reporter, and I couldn't get a sports job. Adam Cook, who does sports for us now, was our sports guy in Lloydminster, and so my boss said, "Do weather and agriculture," and I don't know anything about farming. He's like, "But do that, and then when Adam leaves, because eventually he'll leave, then you can have the sports job." And then I was horrible at farm news. I had some really good people that were like, "Hey,
define horrible."
So there was a half-hour show called AgriFacts that I used to have to do, and the Sherry Lukens was the woman that I replaced, and Sherry won all kinds of awards for this, like broadcasting awards for this half-hour show. I took that half-hour show, and I knew I had 22 minutes to fill, so I would find one guy, and I would talk to him for 22 minutes, and then I would just cover it with like footage of crops or cows. And well, I didn't win any awards for that. I had to call. There was a family that was like, "Listen, call us if you're going to say something stupid on TV. Call us first. You can look stupid to us on the phone, and then you won't look dumb on TV." So I would call them, and I'd be like, "Hey, listen, it's spelled Hereford. Is it heifer or Hereford?" And they would laugh, and they'd be like, "Well, it could be a heifer, but that's actually pronounced Hereford." So yeah, I didn't know anything about farming. But I really liked doing weather, and so I got a job doing weather in Saskatoon.
I can just imagine the farmers talking about you while you're trying to pull that off.
Terrible. When I came to Edmonton years later, I got an email from a guy in Bonnyville, and he says, "Listen, I remember this goofy kid in Lloydminster who wore suits that were 3 sizes too big, who was terrible. My wife and I used to look at each other and go, how is this guy on TV?" I got to say, though, you're not half bad now. So
that's awesome.
So I eventually won him over. But yeah, so I got a job in Saskatoon. I had gotten passed over for this job the first time at Global in Saskatoon. There were like 4 people that applied for it, and I didn't get it, and so I was still in Lloyd. And then 6 months later, this job came open again. I was like, "Oh, this is awesome!" So I applied for it again. Got it. Got to Saskatoon, and my boss is like, "Yeah, there was actually no one else that applied for the job this time, so we had to give it to you." And then 3 weeks later, she says, "Oh, Greyhound just dropped off a tape. There was one other applicant. It was a girl that I had worked with in Lloydminster had applied, and they lost her tape." She's like, I totally would have given it to her, but I gave it to you instead."
So is that why your favorite lesson is you have to be lucky to be good and good to be lucky?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, my dad used to say that when I would play goal too, right? He'd sit up in the stands and I would make a save and he had signals for me. And one of them was this. And so I'd make a save and I'd be feeling really good. And then I'd look up and he'd be smiling and doing this, which meant horseshoes. And I was like, no, that's not luck, that's skill. And he's, sure it is, sure it is. But yeah, so the woman that had the job for 6 months, she was worried she wasn't going to keep her job. And so she wrote fan mail to herself and then refused to admit it when they approached her with it. And so they let her go. They terminated her contract after her 6 month probation. So that's how I got lucky in that regard, in the regard that Greyhound lost the tape of the only other person that applied. Yeah.
She wrote fan mail to herself?
Yes. And this was like computers weren't really I remember the first time we got like an internet connected computer with Hotmail that you could install on like one computer at the front of the newsroom. So this was before all of that. So she would handwrite them and they were all in the same handwriting, different colored ink, but all the same handwriting. Because she was worried that, her probation was coming.
Really, really dumb question, because obviously I don't know enough about being a weatherman.
Writing. Okay, yeah.
That
writing fan mail to yourself.
Is a successful, like at the end of her probation, were they going to look and say, listen, you only had one person write into you, you're out of here? Like, have you ever been worried about fan mail?
To myself?
Yeah.
Well, not after that happened. That's a cautionary tale, Sean.
Don't write fan mail to yourself.
I had to give do they call it the commencement address? What do they call that when you're like the guest speaker at a graduation? Anyway, I was the guest speaker at a graduation. I had to give whatever the address is, and that was the title of my address to the grade 12s from Paul Kane High School in St. Albert. The address was, don't write fan mail to yourself. And then everything kind of built off of that. Oh, by the way, don't write fan mail to yourself, whatever you do. That's my life lesson right there. Lucky to be good and don't write fan mail to yourself.
I'm missing something here. Like, I get the story about don't write fan mail to yourself, but when you started in Saskatoon at 6 months, did they bring you in and go, listen, actually people really like you, we're going to keep you on?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. So she was really worried. She was really worried then that nobody was liking what she was doing.
Yes. I think she was concerned that she was not going to get renewed. And so, hey, let's push the ball over the goal line.
So she didn't write to herself. She wrote to the news station saying, oh, this woman's awesome. Oh, yes. Sorry to all the listeners. I'm a bit slow this morning. Like, I get it now. So the boss.
Right. And so maybe saying fan mail to yourself, fan mail about yourself.
A fan mail about yourself.
The better term. Yeah.
Oh man, that is
yeah. Isn't that a great story?
Oh, that is a great story. I can't believe that's how you got your big break.
Yes. Yeah. So then my second big break was, so I worked in Saskatoon for about 5 years, and then the Global Toronto was starting up a morning show. And so my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, she's like, you got to apply for this. You got to apply for this. I was like, I don't know. We don't want to move to Toronto. So I applied for it. And then they called me and offered me, it was like 6 a.m. They called and offered me basically the same amount of money as I was making in Saskatoon. I'm like, what are you talking about? Why would I move all the way out to Toronto to make no more money than I'm making here in Saskatoon when I know it's going to cost me more? So I said, thanks very much, but no thanks. And I turned down the job. So then like an hour and a half later, she called back again and she's like, okay, listen, we can give you, and it was like an extra $15,000 a year. I was like, nope, I'm still not doing it for that. Thanks very much, but no. So I ended up turning down that job 3 times. And then the senior vice president of news for all of Global called and said, sometimes doors open, you walk through them, you don't ask questions, and good things happen on the other side. So I was like, okay, well, my career's over. if I don't take this job. So we up and moved to Toronto, and then I did not enjoy my time in Toronto. And thankfully, about
Why?
6 weeks after we got there, this job came open. I had a boss who she threatened to tape my hands to my sides because I talk with my hands. Sean, you've seen me on the news. I talk with my hands. I'm an expressive person, and I'm a weatherman. I have to point at stuff. But she was from radio, who had been brought in to sort of overhaul the news department. And so I was like, you offered me this job 3 times. Surely you saw my tape. You know I talk with my hands. So yeah, she would threaten to tape my hands unless I kept them below my shoulders. So that was the compromise that we came up with, is I could still move my hands, but they couldn't come above my shoulders. They had to stay below my shoulders. And so the second day we get to Toronto, we find out that my wife is pregnant. So now I'm not making enough money to live there and support a family. She's not going to be able to work because no one's going to hire her now that she's pregnant. We just moved away from all of our family. I'm doing a morning show, so I got to go to bed at like 8 o'clock at night and get up at 3 in the morning to drive all the way across Toronto because I'm living in Etobicoke because I can't afford to live anywhere else. And so yeah, it sucked. And then and then Ian Leonard, who was the weather guy at CFRN in Edmonton, he left. He went to the States, and so this job came open. So I was only there. I did a month of rehearsals with them, and then I was on air for about 3 weeks. And then my last day was the blackout. You remember the big blackout?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were there for SARS and the blackout, and the SARS Rolling Stones relief concert. And then we came back to Edmonton. So I kind of torched that bridge. They were not happy with me, but it was the right move. I've been here for 17 years now, and it was absolutely the right move.
Gee, management is such a funny thing. Just going back to the lady about your hands and everything, right? She probably had the best intentions on why she wanted, certain things. But
I'm sure.
But at the same time, when dealing with people and how to keep them motivated, basically torturing them and basically saying like, "You remember what you just did? Yeah, don't ever do that again." Well, that ain't really. I mean, that's pretty much taking away your legs, so to speak, and showing up to work.
Yeah, especially on TV, right? Like you're already nervous because it's like you're in Toronto. This is it. You're at the center of the universe on TV, and now I can't be natural because I'm constantly worried about where my hands are. Or she didn't like that I would say, so it'll be like -2 for you Tuesday. She's like, "What's with your Tuesday?" I don't know. What do you mean? She's like, so then I all self-conscious. Am I saying things wrong? So yeah, it was just a bad fit.
Which
is too bad. But
going from Lloyd to Saskatoon to Toronto to Edmonton, I mean, you've been to some very big populations. What's the biggest difference from going from little small town Lloyd, obviously not having to host an agricultural show would be one of them, going to bigger centers.
Sure.
But what was maybe some of the biggest differences you noticed, even from Saskatoon to Toronto? Like, geez, that's a giant jump.
You know what the biggest thing that I noticed is how little was different. Like I thought, oh, here you are, right? You've made it. You're in the biggest city in the country. These are the best of the best. And they're not. It's just it's exactly the same. It's just people doing their jobs. They're not any more talented than a lot of the people. Like, the news anchors I worked with in Toronto were no more talented than Chris Krieger in Saskatoon, who I worked with, or McIntyre and Isfeld and Carrie Dahl here in Edmonton. I mean, they lived in Toronto, and so they got a job in Toronto. So that was what surprised me the most, was just, it was the same. It's the same thing no matter where you are. It's just people have a, and not even have a bigger opinion of themselves. Because in Saskatoon, I worked with some guys who thought they were the kings because they were on TV. So yeah, I don't know that there's all that much different. I mean, there's more when you get to Toronto. There's more money and more resources available to the news department than there is. You get to make a few more decisions, because decisions are in Edmonton. Decisions are being made there, and then they kind of get filtered down, right?
Well, you've hit a thing on my head. I've only been doing this now, just coming up on 2 years. February will be 2 years of sitting down. I am going to be blunt. I didn't go into radio. I've always wanted to. And then I heard my first podcast in 2018, and I thought, wow, that's brilliant. And obviously I lived under a box because I found out quickly that podcasts have been around a very long time. But when I started watching, like the On Rights of the world, well, On Right's pretty special, but when you watch, when you watch some of the big shows that are on Toronto and stuff, all I think is, like, when I'm watching them, I'm like, I actually don't do anything that special. They just have a giant audience size, right? Like they've done some things right to get there, but then instead of having an audience of, Lloydminster, I don't know, surrounding area and everything, call it 50 to 70,000, let's call it. Well, immediately going to Saskatoon, you're hundreds of thousands, right? And then immediately going to Toronto, you're millions of people. It's audience size.
Yeah, although, so I worked with a guy named Michael Coos when I was at Global in Toronto, and he had come from Edmonton to Toronto when I went from Saskatoon to Toronto, and so we both knew what it was like to work in a Western market. And when I got to Toronto, he's like, the first thing you're going to notice is that nobody cares. He's like, when you worked in Saskatoon, you couldn't go to the grocery store without people knowing that you were the weather guy. Same thing for me when I was in Edmonton. He's like, there's legitimate celebrities here. We are not celebrities here. So yes, more people are watching you, but
nobody cares.
Way more anonymous. You're way more anonymous there than you are in a smaller market.
Well, that does make sense, though. I mean, in Toronto, you got the Maple Leafs, you got the Raptors, you got Drake, you got Bieber, you got some star power there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, legitimate celebrities, right? You have movie stars.
Movie stars, and I should throw out the Jays too. Geez, I'm not even spacing on the Blue Jays too, right? Like, there's a lot of different.
The Argos.
Yeah, the Argos. Yeah, sure.
Toronto FC.
Soccer. I tell you what, soccer's slowly becoming, or maybe quickly. There's soccer fans out there. Not in this part of the world, there isn't, but I mean, soccer's picking up steam awfully quick.
Sure, yeah, I think the Whitecaps have a pretty big following, and Toronto FC has a big following. I was just being a jerk.
That's all right. The people around Lloyd aren't turning on Toronto FC, but they are turning on the Blue Jays, right? Like, if the Blue Jays are doing anything decent, heck, even this year with the shortened season, everybody watches the Blue Jays.
Yeah, fair. That's fair. I don't. I can't get into baseball.
Really?
I just can't. No, I can't do it.
Slowness of the game, length of the season, both, style. What is it?
I don't know. It's not slowness of the game, because I love to watch golf, and that is slow and takes a long time. I just don't care.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So what sport then do you watch? Or you're a golf guy?
I like to watch golf. I watch a lot of football, watch a lot of basketball. Don't watch as much hockey as I used to.
Basketball? Really? You're going to put basketball in there?
I do watch basketball. My wife hates it, but I do watch a fair amount of basketball.
So you're a Raptors fan? Is that where we're going with this? Who do you cheer for?
You know what? Listen, Sean, when I was about 11 years old, I decided I needed to have a favorite team in every sport.
Okay.
But I hated front runners.
Fair.
I was a guy, like, if it's popular,
So you're a
I don't like
Vancouver Grizzlies fan.
no. I'm a New York Knicks fan.
Ooh.
I'm a New York Jets fan,
Ooh.
and I'm a Flyers fan.
Yeah.
And none of those teams, since I picked them, have won a championship.
Flyers
They've gone.
Flyers have come close.
Yeah, they've come close. None of them have actually won, though.
Well, hey, I'm an Oilers fan. We haven't won though.
The curse.
Eh?
Yeah, well, I used to hate the Oilers because they were always beating the Flyers. I like them now that they're
So you
not
were
good.
living in Lloyd and a Flyers fan.
Yep.
Ooh.
Yeah. Ron Hextall, that was my guy.
Ronnie Hextall
Well,
was your guy.
Pelly Lindbergh was my guy, and then when he died, I bawled my eyes out. And then for a while we had nobody, right? We had Bob Froese. Remember Bob Froese? Oh,
No, I can't say I do. Can't say I do.
Terrible. We had a terrible run of goalies, but I think finally we've hit on something here with the Sherwood Park kid.
Oh yeah, Carter Hart. No doubt, man. That kid's legit.
Yep, I think so.
Flyers, Knicks, and the Jets. You realize
the Jets
are terrible. Like,
I know. They've been terrible forever. I mean, it's you know how sad it is to be a fan of a team and your glory year, like when you look back, you're like, oh man, it was so good when Mark Sanchez was our quarterback and Vinny Testaverde. Like that, when that's the height of your fandom, right? Oh man, I wish we could have Sanchez back. Mark Sanchez.
You know what my best memory of the Jets is? I think we were at the Canadian Brew House one night, and they were playing. Well, I can't remember if it was a Monday nighter. I want to say it was a Monday nighter, but I can't be sure on that. When Sanchez,
the butt fumble,
I was in the bar that night. I'm like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing in the world. That's the Jets in a nutshell. That could be put on repeat for the rest of the time, and everyone in COVID would have a smile on their face. Like, I mean, that right there was just pure entertainment.
Yeah. So the best moment in the past 10 years for the Jets is when Ryan Fitzpatrick almost led them to the playoffs, only to throw an interception at the end of the last game of the season to the Buffalo Bills and just destroy all Jet fans. Terrible.
So are you a Jerry V? I can't think of his last name. The guy who wants to buy him. He's like a motivational dude, marketer, yada yada.
Oh, listen. Anybody would be better than Woody Johnson. Like we got to get rid of that dude. just purely on his support of Trump, I'm out. Like I'm ready to cash in my chips on that team.
So you're obviously a football fan. Did you grow up playing football?
Yep. Yeah, 6-man football, KIYIU, the KIU League. So I went to Holy Rosary High School.
Oh, you're
and
a holy guy.
Were so Holy Rosary Raiders. But we were small enough that we played 6-man against like Wilkie and the Loose Land Lords, and maybe Robert. I was a DB, not a great one, but I was a DB. And then our last year, we actually our quarterback, who I think teaches at Holy Rosary now, Dustin Falsher. So he ended up going
Absolutely.
to Queens.
He's been on the podcast, him and his brothers.
There you go.
Yeah.
So Queens Golden Gales. So he was our quarterback and then got injured right before we went into playoffs, and 3 kids moved to our school right before playoffs. So they kicked us out of the 6-man league and we had to play 9-man. The very first game that we ever played in 9-man was playoffs, 9-man football playoffs. And so our chance, had Falsher stayed healthy, had we been in 6-man instead of 9-man, we would have been provincial champions. But no, stolen.
Not bitter whatsoever.
No, I don't. It's actually been a long time since I thought about that story.
How did
I'm
you
sure
fare?
Falsher's angrier about it than me.
How did you fare in your first game in 9-man?
Horrible, because we didn't have enough guys, so I had to go both ways. So they put me in at like, I don't even know what the position. It wasn't running back or half back really. But they had this play where it was a reverse, but I didn't know how to play offense, and so they were like, okay, so you go this way and then come back and then cut back and then Kim's gonna hand you the ball, and we ran that play twice, back to back, and I screwed that play up twice. And then they were just like, just go out there and run routes or something. We're not giving you the ball anymore. I was horrible. I'm a D guy. I'm not an offensive guy.
I'm having visions of the Replacements with Keanu Reeves where they're trying to play and they're just having issues, right? Like I can imagine lining up against your team being
there's equipment that's not it's not tucked in properly.
Yeah, maybe the longest yard is more apt, right?
Yeah.
With Adam Sandler, that might have been what it was.
Yeah.
You know, we've been talking now for like 40 minutes, and I haven't even got to this rapping thing. I got to know where, like, along the stretch. So we've talked a lot about your career of being, becoming a meteorologist, the weatherman. Where on earth then?
I am a meteorologist. I when I was in Saskatoon, I went back to school and got my meteorology degree. So.
Oh, so you are legit.
Not just a pretty face on TV.
What song? There had to have been a guy or group.
Yep.
That you would it have been tapes?
Public Enemy,
then?
Fear of a Black Planet. What's that? Sorry.
Would it have been a cassette?
Oh yeah. Cassette
Walkman?
from for sure a Walkman. Yeah, the yellow Sony sports Walkman. So it was Public Enemy, Fear of a Black Planet that I bought at the Record Hound in Lloyd Mall.
That dates me.
Record Hound was still.
That dates me. I don't remember that.
Yeah. It's it was. Do you remember where the Zellers was?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it was just outside, just up and to the right from the Zellers. I think there's a sports, like a sporting goods store there, or like an Athlete's World or a Foot Locker.
A Foot Locker.
Anyway,
Foot Locker. Anyway,
doesn't really matter. That album, and then I bought Run DMC Tougher Than Leather on cassette, and I was hooked. And my buddy Marcus Lopez, his dad owned the Arby's and what was the bar was called Amigos.
Amigos is still back. No. Oh,
Amigos is back.
Okay, Amigos is back. Wait, so we've had
is
a real.
Is it still right beside the Wayside Inn?
Oh yeah, it hasn't moved. So Amigos is back. It took a brief hiatus and became. There might have been a bar in between, but it became Level Up for a little bit. But now it's Amigos. Cooler's shut down. Hasn't ran in probably 3 years, I would say. Okay. What was the other one on the Sask side?
Long Branch?
No.
We never went to the Long Branch because they played country music. We didn't like it.
God, now I'm forgetting what the other one's called. That's terrible of me, Lloydminster. I apologize. But essentially, Amigos is the only place in town.
You're not thinking of Bo Diddley's, are you? Bo Diddley's is on the Alberta side.
Saskatchewan.
Is Bo Diddley's still there?
Bo Diddley's is still there. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Great times there back in the day. Name that tune.
Yeah.
God, what's the place on the Sask side?
I don't know.
Come on.
We never went anywhere.
There was two bars in Lloyd back in the day. There was Amigos and there was the place where you had to be 19 because it was on the Saskatchewan side and I could never get into until you were older.
Was it in the base? Was it in the
basement?
basement?
In the basement.
Isn't that the Long Branch?
No. God. This is terrible.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
You know what I'm going to do?
Anyway,
I'm going to text my
Marcus
buddy right
Lopez
now
is,
as we're
yeah, do
going, and that way I
Do
can
it.
have the answer, because I can feel people listening going, "You idiots! It's this.
You-
It's this." Carry on. Carry on.
Anyway, because his dad owned Amigos, he had an in with the DJ, and so the DJ would always slide us rap records, and so yeah, that was, I mean, from then on, that's all I listened to, and so my brother and I would make tapes, and we'd record them in Miles Hush was my my brother's buddy, and so we would record him in his basement, and NWA had just come out at that time, and so we called Miles's studio 100 Miles and Running, but Miles was with a Y. We were called The Villains, with a Z, of course, my brother and I, and so yeah, we just I through the years, that's all we did, is we would just record rap albums, songs after songs after
Did you
songs.
keep all that?
I met a guy in North Battleford. Oh yeah, lots of it's on cassette, so I can't listen to it anymore. But I've got most of it on CD, and then on the computer, because
literally took the listeners less than 30 seconds. Ezzy's, like,
Sure.
I mean, they're already making fun of me that I can't remember that.
Oh, Ezzy's.
Right? Ezzy's in the basement. That's no more either.
I don't. I was maybe in Ezzy's twice in my life.
Really? Why?
No, I don't know. Just wasn't where we. That wasn't our.
That wasn't your hangout.
Wasn't our.
Your scene.
No, we would go to Amigos, but and listen, if your buddy's dad owns a club,
Yeah,
that's
you're going
where
there.
we go.
Yeah, you're going there. Yeah,
Right.
fair.
So
Fair. Yeah, it's done. So
yeah,
you're making all these tapes, like, where you?
my buddy Randy Kozlowski lived in North Battleford. His dad had an old electronics shop, and above the electronics shop, he had a studio. And we would just, those are the greatest times. I mean, we would stay up all night. I'd work all week, and then Friday night I would drive to North Battleford, and we would stay up all weekend and just make music. And it was awesome. Try and save money so that we could buy zip drives, so he could save them to these zip drives. It was the best.
So did you actually, like, tour around rapping then?
Yep. We would do shows. When I started working in Saskatoon, I'd do shows probably once a month in Saskatoon.
So, like, just at a bar. That's what you're talking about?
Yep. Just at the club. And then I met up with some guys online. We called ourselves the Worldwide Wordsmiths, because there were two guys from New York, a guy from Oklahoma, a guy from Toronto, and then me in Saskatoon. And we all would record in our remote locations and send them to my buddy Derek in Oklahoma, and he would mix it all down. And then we put out an album called Classic Composure. And so we did some shows in the States with that. So I went down and we did a couple shows in Oklahoma.
And how was that?
It was awesome. It was great. So good. I mean, it was crazy because I knew these guys so well, but I had never met them in person before. Until, my plane lands in Oklahoma, and there's these guys that I've seen pictures of, but I've never met them before.
So,
but I mean, I had a guy when I lived in Saskatoon. I had a guy that I would. There used to be these rap boards that you'd write your raps on online, and then it was so nerdy. But you would form these crews, and so I had this buddy named Tree Vortex, and I didn't really know Tree, but he decided he wanted to come from, I think he was in Windsor. And he was like, "Hey, can I come stay with you for like a week? And we'll record an album in your bathroom." I was like, "Okay, sure." And so some guy just shows up on my doorstep to stay for a week. It was the greatest times. I met the greatest people. It was so good. And I mean, that was before rap was really popular. I mean, it was starting to become more popular, but it was something that nobody was really doing it. It was just, I mean, now it's like, oh yeah, you're a rapper, everybody's a rapper.
I don't think that at
but
all. Coming from this area, I don't. It surprised the hell out of me that
listen,
you were a
Sean,
rapper.
I'm the best rapper from Lloydminster, bar down.
Hey, yeah, you might be. I don't know, or maybe for all I know,
My brother
15 are
was
going to
pretty
pop
good,
out
but-
of the woodwork, and in like 2 months' time, we're going to have a rap battle here in Lloyd, where you got to stand behind. You got to be in your selective boxes, so there can be no actual spitting on each other, and just screaming at each other through plastic like that. That could maybe go.
That's not a bad idea. I like that. I like that a lot. It would keep down the fights too. If you were separated by plexiglass.
Have you done rap battles then? Like I feel like I'm you talk about it being like you're a nerd for like going down that rabbit hole. And I feel like I sound like a complete and utter moron because I literally know nothing about rapping. I will say this. I enjoy the music. I Run DMC is freaking awesome. Like there's a lot of rappers that put out some really good content, like some really catchy tunes and everything else. But when it comes to this, I feel like I don't even have the questions in my repertoire to ask. So you've been in rap battles then? Like you've just pulled up to, I don't know, wherever and just started going off?
Yeah. I mean, usually they would happen at shows. So you would go to a show. So you might go see, like in Saskatoon, you go see Gangstar. And then after the show's done, he raps, I rap. So you battle. It's not like, it's not like in Anchorman where we've got your posse is rolling up. But it just sort of happens organically. And I mean, it's a small enough community that everybody knows everybody and hates but likes each other. So everybody thinks they're the best. So
that was a Friday night. That was a Friday night for you then?
Yeah. You go see, oh man, there were so many great shows that came through really small clubs. I saw De La Soul with like 30 people. But I was when I worked in Saskatoon, I was emceeing an event at a high school. I was emceeing a talent show, and some high school kid challenged me to battle, not really knowing. Oh yeah, he's the weatherman. And I remember I destroyed him and had some line about how his girlfriend loved me, and I had to say no because I'm too old for her. And the crowd was just like, oh, and it was all like their parents and stuff. And I was like, oh, I gotta stop this. But it was the highlight of my battling career, is when I took out this high school kid as like a 22-year-old.
Well, it probably surprised the hell out of him, and then surprised the hell out of the audience,
he had
right?
He was done.
You know, what I love about sitting down across from people is every once in a while, and actually I shouldn't say that, lots of times, you just get completely like surprised, genuine surprise. And the fact that you toured around, went down south and like chased it, man. That's pretty cool. Lots of people wouldn't chase it. I'm sure there was lots of people back in the day that wanted to, but you actually chased it. Like, did you ever get close? Like, did you ever just like,
Yeah, you know what? I think the guys in that group were really good. Like if we had really pushed, I think we might have been able to do something. But what's doing something, right? Like there's so many talented musicians. I mean, to be a touring musician there's lots of guys doing that, right? So I don't know. I don't know what that would have looked like. I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out now. And I mean, my kids love music. I got a 14-year-old that He's got his own Spotify account, and he puts out like an album every month, and just instrumental guitars and drums. And he's taught himself to play piano. My youngest, likes music, and so he's on a couple of with one of the radio stations here in town. We do a Halloween song every year, and so he's been on the last 2 Halloween songs that we've done. We did a Christmas song a couple years ago, and so he was on that. So I don't know what making it would have looked like. I wouldn't have been Drake. We were never that, commercially accessible, I don't think. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy with the catalog of music that I have on my computer. I can still go back and listen. Some of them I like, oh, but some of it's good.
It's cool that one of the cool things for kids growing up today is they can do what your kids are doing, right? Release to Spotify, and like the accessibility. Well, I even think for the stuff I got to listen to since I've known, which has been like 24 hours. I had no idea before 24 hours, and right. I have a thing where when I'm getting ready for an interview, about 5 minutes before, I throw on AC/DC. I got a song that I like, that just gets me going, gets my mind in the right mindset. And I thought today, you know what? We'll throw on a little Josh Classen. So I threw on Numbers, and then I found another one. I think it was 9 to 5. 9 to 5 was pretty good too, right? Even though it's kind of like it's almost a little humorous when you watch the video, right? About what you guys are all talking about, right? But it's still like, I'm like, this ain't half bad, right?
Yeah, so that's my buddy RJ. Put that together. He had to do that for a class project. Omar, who's in there, is a really super successful writer, and he's a former rapper as well. And so, I mean, we all just kind of had regular jobs, and that was RJ's vision. He was like, listen, here's what you're going to do. You're going to rap about what your regular 9 to 5 job is, but the fact that you also love hip hop.
That's really cool. I guess I completely understand what you're talking about in a sense, not the rapping part, because that's so foreign to me.
It's my creative outlet, but I mean,
creative outlet.
The fact that it's rap, right? Like it's
a creative outlet. That's a very good way.
It's no different than if I played in a jazz band or a country band. It's just that.
Well, I just look at it.
I like.
Yeah, and I just look at it the same. Listen, I work Monday to Friday, sell chemical in the oil field, and my creative outlet, to steal your terminology, is sitting down and talking to people like this, because I really enjoy it. Like it's what I look forward to every single week, is who I get to sit down with this week, and and then you find out stuff like this, and you're like, God, that's cool, right? Like that's cool. It's super cool. You think back in the day, you think you're a nerd, but I think anyone who enjoys whatever they're in is a bit of a nerd, right? They're totally sucked into it. And some of them are just a little more mainstream, right? So if you go to hockey practice and play hockey 24/7, people call it dedication. And it's because it's accepted as we're all trying to make the NHL. But if you go a little bit out of the box, then you're a nerd. That's okay. I think that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's like I was saying, if it's popular, most of my life, if it's popular, I don't like it. Which is kind of ironic, because in the job I'm in now, the goal is to be popular. But
well, I got a couple of I want to pick your meteorology brain then, because I've been wondering a couple of things I've thought about, and one of them is, as cities grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger, does that obviously I think that can impact weather patterns, or am I wrong on that?
Oh no, you're totally on base with that. I mean, it affects temperatures. You got more of an urban heat island effect. Because of that, you've got greater lift because of the heat, and so greater potential for that to act as a trigger for thunderstorm development in the summertime. Absolutely. Urbanization definitely has impacted weather patterns.
So then, does that lend to the thought that we're seeing more extreme weather then, or not so much?
Yeah, I don't think it's urbanization. I mean, most of the studies are pretty clear that global warming and climate change is pretty well defined as the increase in CO2 emissions. So that's where most of the increase in extreme weather and the change in temperatures globally that we're seeing is coming from.
But over your career then, how many years
Yep.
you've been in meteorology?
Oh, 24. How old am I? 44. Yeah, 20 it'd be 24 years. Yeah.
So over a 24-year span, have you seen weather just slowly get more extreme? Or is it just pretty, like, I don't know. All I can think of, and this is a terrible analogy and I apologize, is I just think of something like hockey. Let's bring it to hockey. If you go back to the 90s and just slowly see the rule changes they've made up until 2020, you can see the change in hockey. It's like it's very evident. Now, I don't sit and watch weather every single day. You do. Have you seen like a noticeable change like all through the past 24 years you've been in it where it's like, wow, this is pretty noticeable?
Yeah, not so much with extremes. Although, I mean, if you look at record high, like we almost never set record lows anymore. We set record highs a couple times every year. Average temperatures for every month except October are above where they were 30 and 60 years ago. Rain in the middle of the winter is more common than it used to be. It's always rained in January, even back in the 20s and 30s, but it happens more often now. So yeah, I mean, because I do it every day, it's hard, and because I'm always looking forward, it's hard for me to remember what just happened. And so I'm a guy that relies on going back and looking at the historical records as opposed to my own memory, because my memory of those things is as flawed as everybody else's. But the numbers show that that is happening.
And one for my wife, if she ever listens to this, because she makes fun of me. Anytime I comment on the weather like a good farming kid, she goes, "Oh, weatherman Sean's talking again." And so when she heard I was having you on, she's like, "Oh, that should be fun. Like, that should be fun, right? Like, here we go. You're going to talk about clouds."
Everybody's especially in Western Canada, everybody loves to talk about the weather. I don't know what it is, but people love it. And maybe it's not just Western Canada. Like if you look at consistently what are the most downloaded news and information apps, the weather apps across North America are the ones that most people are accessing more frequently than anything else. Everybody loves to know what it's going to be like.
Well, you think
and then complain that it was wrong.
Hey, people want to complain. Actually, if COVID's taught me one thing, is people, I was just saying this on my most recent episode, people want to complain at the best of times. You always I have days where I just want to have a complaint out or bitch about something. And I didn't fully understand the necessity of sports in society until it's taken away. And all people comment on now are really, really charged things, right? So the election in the States is charged. Anything to do with COVID is like super charged, right? Like it's almost hurts and stresses me out too much. And I just want professional sports to come back. So when it comes to weather, I get it, right? Fucking weatherman said it was going to be sunny today. It's raining. What an asshole, right? Like, yeah, I get that. But sometimes it's just nice to complain about things that are almost like irrelevant.
Inconsequential.
Thank you. I want those things back, right? I want them. I want the Oilers playing, and I want McDavid to have a bad day, just so I can hear people talk about how McDavid's overrated, and you'd be like, "Oh my God, like really? That's where we're at as a society." I want that back. Right now, everything we complain about is, man, it stresses everybody out. It's hard to get away from.
Yeah. Everybody's got an opinion.
at all
And
times.
everybody's opinion is right, no matter what.
As for
But you're
everybody
right.
out,
It is more fun being an armchair, general manager, uh, as opposed to an armchair politician.
oh man, the armchair politicians are hurting my brain right now. It makes me want to just, yeah.
I know.
That's it's a really hard, not a hard thing to talk about. It's just like, I don't know, man. Either let's take Alberta for instance. You either hate Kenny or like love him, and if you love him, the other side hates you, and vice versa.
Right.
Right, and that's all I could. And it's like there's no ability to chat between the two groups anymore. You're on a side, and you pick your side, and we're gonna go to war.
Totally polarized.
Oh man,
Totally
and that's the entire world. It's like, if you just put down your phone and went and talked to that said person, they're probably pretty nice and they're probably pretty normal and probably some things that you thought you'll talk to them and be like, geez, huh. That's actually a pretty interesting point. I hadn't really thought about it that way.
Yeah. And also, I find that the people who are like the angriest and say the worst things online would never say those things in person. Which is why sometimes people will be, you get negative comments online and people are like, how do you deal with that? Like, I don't care. If that person saw me, they wouldn't say that. There's no way. And if they did, okay, fine. Well, I'd just turn around and walk away. Who cares? But it's the same with my kids. Like I look at my 12 and 13, my 13, 14-year-old sons and like what they go through with social media and the things that people are saying. I'm like, this only exists on your phone. None of these kids say these things at school. What? Why are you talking like a gangster on your phone? You're not a gangster. You live in St. Albert. But it's something with social media and phones, and it's safe, and you can say whatever you want. And it's terrible.
It's
now I'm sounding like Grandpa Josh.
I don't know. I go back to every once in a while a guest will say something that really stays with me, and the one I think of when you're talking like that is Keith Morrison. He said, basically, for every advancement that's really good, you have the similar negative consequence of it. So for all the technology advancements have been really good, there's negative consequences to it. And when you're, with all the technological advancements, so the human element of it has just disappeared, right? The in-person doing this. And that's a lost skill. It really is, to sit and be able to chat to somebody and have a conversation. And you see it in the younger generations. Like, get that damn phone out of your hand for a little bit. We're right here.
Yeah. No, they talk more, but just not face to face.
Well,
I don't know. It's not going to change. That
no.
Have to learn to adapt to it. But Keith is right. I mean, I'm sure people said the same thing when radio first came around. Oh, radio's going to destroy the world. And then TV. Oh, TV is going to destroy the world. And now it's social media. Social media is going to destroy the world. So, but this time I think it might. I think it actually might this time.
It's definitely got everybody supercharged. But that's the thing. You can't, it's very hard to go put yourself in the room when the TV's first being out and the thoughts and discussion going around the coffee table at that point. It's almost impossible to go back. And because all through the last 100 years, there's been moments in time where the political society is just supercharged with issues. I mean, we only have to look to, some famous individuals, like there was a president assassinated at one point in time. There was people that were public figures that were assassinated at different times, right? That happened in the last 100 years. That ain't that long ago. Heck, it happened in the last 50 years, 60 years.
Yeah. I mean, for all of our hand wringing about how horrible the world is, I mean, if you look back through history,
There's some pretty bad
for
times,
the most
man.
part. It's there were some really bad times, right? I mean, even with the pandemic, I mean, we're not crawling through muddy trenches in the middle of war right now. We're just being told to stay home and put on a mask. Like it's not that bad.
And yet, I will say to that, by us talking like it's not as bad, like being in the trenches, at least we don't have to be there. We're in a different type of trench. And what that has brought up is the mental health aspect. And I tell you, 5 years ago, I never really thought much about mental health. And every year that goes along, it becomes more prominent. And in today's society, the mental health trench is a pretty big one for a lot of people.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure it was a big problem then too. We just didn't talk about it.
Yeah, fair.
Right.
Fair.
Mental health is that. Do you remember talking about mental health 10, 15 years ago even? Never. I mean, I'm glad we're in a place where
5 years ago, Josh, like it was pretty tough to talk about. Like people didn't want to. It had a little bit of a taboo on it 5 years
for
ago.
sure.
And it's just slowly coming out of the woodworks now.
Yeah. So I think to what you're saying, I think that's probably always been an issue. It's just been an issue that we don't talk about that. Oh, we don't talk about that. But you're right. It is this is just as hard for us going through it.
Well,
we won't know. We can't put ourselves back in those shoes, right?
Well, we can't put ourselves in war, and
we're not on Oregon Trail where malaria is killing people.
All I'm saying is with World War, I don't think anybody wants to go back to that. Nobody wants to go back to the trenches. Nobody wants to go back to the mortar shells hitting. And, I've read and heard stories. I'm a Dan Carlin fan, hardcore history, where he talks about the mortar shells hitting and blowing up forests and just making them sit there and float because so many more. Like, none of us want to go back to that. But I will say this, with the announcement coming yesterday, and basically you're in your house, you're not supposed to have anybody over, no, like human interaction, whether we want to give it its due, is a huge part of being a human, right? Of just being a human is human interaction and having positive conversations where everything isn't like just negative. Now with technology, there's ways to do that. We're doing it right now. And people need to exercise their ability to do that more. But when you start to cut that interaction out of people's lives, that's a tough thing to go through, I think. And I think a lot of people are feeling that stress, and we just have never had to deal with it before, because normally you get to go to, well, for us, work or the hockey rink or music class, or you just think, and you get to let out a couple bitches about, man, the weather sucks today. And is it inconsequential? Yes. But is it nice to sit there and talk about something with somebody and hear a little bit of a gossip story? Sure. And all that is just poof, gone for, it's been almost a bloody year, right? Like it's been a long time.
My youngest was just saying, when we were watching those YouTube videos from when they were little, he's like, I almost can't remember what it was like not to have to wear to remember to bring a mask to school, to be able to like wrestle with my friends. It's gone quick. Those things have gone quick for my kids. They don't. I mean, we were in Mexico in January, but I look at those pictures and that seems like it was 10 years ago, not 10 months ago. So yeah. I don't know what the point of that was. Just that my kids are now to the point where they've adapted to it, and I think it might be harder for you and guys like you and I, who remember all of our lives having those social interactions. For them, they've already kind of forgot. They've adapted to this new normal. They forgot what that was like.
I just think, look at
which is kind of sad and scary for these kids.
Yeah.
You hope that someday this is over, and that now are they going to be skittish about having those interactions again? What, when they're told that they can take the masks off, and
You
in
remember
school?
you remember being a kid and having health class and them telling you about the water fountain and how many germs were there? Do you remember that part of health class?
No.
That is one
Never.
thing that has stuck with me for all time. And I still remember thinking, yeah, but I want to drink water. Like, I mean, if I get sick, I get sick, right? Pretty much. And now I was at a Bell store a couple days ago, and the guy was wearing his mask to talk on the phone. And I said, "You got to wear a mask to talk on the phone?"